It's just that because interior design and architecture have so many trends and that come and go, right? It becomes so difficult to um, consistently speak a language that is, true to yourself. More than the Indian craft of it, it's about just having that context or that relevance to, something that has been so kind of part of your.
A warm good morning from the Architect's Diary, and I'm Simran Khare, the co-editor at the Architect's Diary, and I welcome you to TADPod. So, TADPod is an initiative by the Architect's Diary where we illuminate the remarkable journeys of the leaders with architectural brilliance. Through TADPod, we focus on presenting curated insights from extraordinary individuals, shedding light on their creative processes, exemplary philosophies, and exquisite contributions to the built environment. By featuring discussions with visionary architects, designers, and urban planners, TADPod seeks to broaden perspectives and shatter stereotypes. TADPod aims to foster a culture of collaboration and knowledge exchange, driving the boundaries of architectural innovation. By highlighting the voices of those who are pushing boundaries and redefining norms, TADPod aims to foster dialogue and inspire positive change. With the medium of thought provoking content, TADPod catalyzes personal and collective growth, motivating individuals to embrace change and take action towards positive transformation. TADPod is more than just an interview series. It's a platform for thought leadership, inspiration, and action, driving forward the discourse on architecture and design in pursuit of a better and more vibrant future for all. Today, we are elated to have Sahiba Madan, the founder of Insitu and Kalakaari Haath. So she completed her bachelor's in architecture in 2012 from Kamla Raheja Institute in Mumbai, after which she worked for 2 years at Studio Lab and Ibrahim John Architects. She is the founding partner at Kalakaari Haath, a design studio focused on home decor and furnishings. Without further ado, let's dive into a thought-provoking session with you, ma'am.
Hi,
Hi. So,
thank you for that very kind introduction.
to begin with the interview, I would like to know the story behind you choosing architecture and design as your career. How did you get to that point?
Uh, um, I think it was something that I never foresee as like something that was very planned. As a kid, I always had interest in just the details of things, making spaces, and even when I was growing up, within my room, I used to try and carve out other spaces. And I was always kind of more, creatively inclined compared to the other members and my siblings and things like that as well. So I always had a passion for art, drawing, as well as like, just spaces. And I think eventually my parents kind of recognized that and they encouraged it over the years of my schooling through hobby classes and then also kind of pushing me into the right direction to kind of pursue a career. So it kind of became like something that was almost like the most obvious kind of language of expression to me. And it was never that I was pushed into this direction. It was just kind of that I was molded into kind of pursuing something that I was always kind of inclined towards.
That's great. I think so. You had this since childhood that this is what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I guess like it's never that I want to grow up and become an architect. It was always that I was creatively inclined, and then that's something that I just kind of pursued further and further and eventually formalized into a career.
Right, right, right. So, even we as Indians, we draw inspiration from our families and cultures for the way we choose to work and live. So, how
Right.
does your childhood or your family influence your style of work, which is quite inclined towards Indian art?
Um, so very honestly, I don't have anybody in my house that is in the creative field in the most remote kind of way. They are all from the medical background. But my mom has always kind of had passion for Indian handicrafts more than, anything else. And that's always something that I saw as an environment when I was growing up. It was everything from like what she wore, the kind of textiles we picked, or what she dressed us in, or what kind of cushion covers, what kind of fabrics that were there in our house, and what kind of artifacts that were there in our house. So it's always something that I guess subconsciously was present. around the environment I was in. And I guess that's what, like on a very kind of subconscious level, you start getting inspiration from, and then eventually you end up driving, or, you kind of circling back to things that, you're so familiar with in your kind of early years that you kind of end up drawing inspiration most, because they seem most comfortable, they seem most real, they seem most kind of relatable.
Okay. And so after graduating from architecture and design background, how did you decide to establish Kalakari Haath, which focuses on home decor and furnishings?
So honestly, it was never a conscious decision. I have come from a family of, my parents are from the service industry. They've been doing 9 to 6 jobs. My sister's a doctor, so nobody really had this kind of entrepreneur kind of initiative in them. I never grew up with it. Um, but I guess like I always had a passion for drawing, and that's something that I really kind of got to pursue even while I was studying architecture. I used it a lot in terms of putting my ideas across, or like presentations or submissions and things like that. So it's always something that I realized that I was good at, and I eventually developed like a fondness towards certain mediums, certain styles and techniques. And then eventually, when I was working, I realized that, maybe this is something that I really, really enjoy. And I think that I'm good at it. Let me try and see if I can, you know, explore it. And that's the thing with design, right? You can never really stop at like say one point, because it's so diverse, it's so vast, so many overlaps. You always feel like there's a little bit more you can explore, and I think that's where it kind of came from, and it pushed me to kind of explore that, and then eventually kind of build something that was completely out of a hobby.
Right. So first you founded Kalakari Haath, and then you went with the interior design studio.
So yeah, so formally yes, in
Okay.
terms of the way the organizations were set up. But after I moved on from my jobs, I was still practicing as an architect and interior designer, and I was doing it more kind of organically with friends, for family, how it is in your early years. So I never really like put that out there, or I never really kind of uh, tried to kind of market that as something that's independent, until it also started kind of growing, and eventually when it became too many things under one umbrella, we kind of decided to give them each their own kind of uh, space and brand name and kind of setup.
Right, right, right. So that process of starting your own architecture and interior design studio must have been really overwhelming. So how would you like, could you share some moments from the founding of your studio?
Honestly, I feel like any service industry is very, very tough to sustain, and it's it's not all gratitude and, oh, like you feel really amazing at the end of the day. For most days, you feel really kind of exhausted and depleted, because you really kind of get to face the realities of life, the realities of bills at the end of the month, the salaries that you have to pay, the idea of being able to plan for the next month or the one after that. And I think these are all real things that are much beyond the creativity that really goes into having your own practice. So I think I struggled with all of them, and it's something that it's just because you are so kind of motivated. And to me, honestly, um, I don't think I know what else I would do if I wasn't doing this. It's almost like, I would be clueless. So just because I, I realized that this is the only way for me, I had to push myself, and kind of, eventually it does. When you do it with honesty and you do it with the right kind of, consistency, you always do see light at the end of the tunnel. But there is a fair share of, the down lows and the kind of hard parts that nobody really talks about. Uh, yeah, I guess that's what it is.
Right, right. I think the the struggle phase or the initial days actually help to shape you a lot. I mean, that teaches you a lot and it
Yeah,
helps
and also I
you.
think pushes you to persevere,
Yes,
right? Like because things are always tough. Even when you have a team of 50 people under you, you still have challenges in the end of the
right.
day, right? So I think that kind of mindset or that attitude, it kind of helps you build that so that you can deal with whatever life is kind of throwing at you.
Right, right, definitely. And so when I look at your work, it's majorly inspired by Indian art, as we spoke about. So Indian culture and Indian art is quite vivid. So how do you incorporate Indian art into your designs, and what aspects of Indian culture influence your work the most?
Um, so I think there are different aspects for the two different kind of studios that we run, right? For Kalakaari Haath, it always became like more inspired from the craft aspect of it, or like the art aspect of it, or more than anything, I think it was always coming from a point of creating some kind of continuity between what has existed and what you want to put out there as somebody in the generation of today. So to me, I've always felt like um, something that has lived for so long can't just be abandoned, and you can't start from zero and say that okay, now I need to rebuild this. I think it's always nicer to kind of, or it only seems logical to find something that would you know, uh, carry on in maybe like an uplifted way or a more kind of contemporary way, or it's reimagined. But so it is kind of relevant in an environment which is much more kind of advanced from the technology aspect of it, or like the skills point of it, or just the different kind of opportunities. So it's I think it's good to kind of utilize uh, those kind of assets that are available now. But I think the idea was always to find that continuity so the story kind of continues, because this is also like for generations down there, right? Um, for me, and then beyond me, and then whatever you kind of leave on, it's one story. That's what gives you that kind of context or relevance, or makes you feel like you belong from somewhere. So I think that is the larger idea that both practices actually stem from. In Insitu, we try and do it a little more in terms of, just spaces that are more timeless. I think the underlying thought is still the same. It's just that because interior design and architecture have so many trends and that come and go, right? It becomes so difficult to um, consistently speak a language that is true to yourself, but also connecting with people. So I think people and our clients also kind of value that, because majority of the work that we do are homes, right? And these homes are where people live for tens, 20s, 30s of year, 30 years. So it's something that even today, if I uh, in the home that I grew up in still feels like I can feel connected to it, or I can feel like it's a space that I would kind of want to go and unwind. So I guess that's the overall idea. It's more than the Indian craft of it. It's about just having that context or that relevance to something that has been so kind of part of your environment while you were growing up.
Right. So you rightly said, so the interior design trends, they like change in months and days. Like we can't even keep a count on it at times.
Right.
So
Yeah.
do you find it sometimes difficult with clients to convince them for a certain idea or a design language that you specifically have?
Um, I think honestly, at the stage that we're at also today, most clients also come to us for the language that we're speaking. That's what I feel like we've been lucky there. People have, kind of, also because there is so many people, who are contributing to the field of design in such beautiful ways. I feel like you can find the right partner in in any format, right? In anything that you want. So I guess people also come to us with a similar thought process, and that's always been you know um, good fortune for us that we've been able to find the right kind of people. But of course, there are challenges that come in any project, and I guess at the end of the day, has to kind of come from, a space of collaboration. It eventually, especially when you're designing homes, it's, architects end up having a lot of ego about things, and uh, you want to just do it your way. But I think it's also important to find those moments where you step back and say that, hey, this is also space that this person is going to use uh, for much longer than you're going to be involved in it. So it should kind of speak their language as well. So if it is about giving into some things, I don't see that there is any shame into it, or I feel like you have to kind of find that balance.
Rightly said, rightly said. So moving ahead, I believe that the finesse in your designs that is definitely achieved by going through various ups and downs throughout the years of your experience. So, and mistakes are definitely the best guides for a better future for everyone. So, what are some of those projects or incidents which molded you into the architect and designer that you are today?
I think we make mistakes every day. I don't think it is about, one instance that changes your life, or it's, I feel like, everybody likes to talk about life in this very dramatic, glorious way where things are just happening and there's a turning point in your life and then things just suddenly fall into place. It's never like that. I think there are good days and bad days. And even within the good days, there are moments that, you feel like things are just going all over the place, and then there are some times that you feel like you're more grounded. I think it's good to be agile. I think that's the crux of it, to be able to kind of have anything that is going to last you, some kind of life that you imagine it, you're trying to build something with longevity. I think you have to be agile. You can't sit with your mistakes and be like, of course introspection is important, but I think also like mulling over or over scrutinizing sometimes is counterproductive to actually just shaking it off and being like, okay, tomorrow's a new day. Let's kind of let's see how it treats us. So I think mistakes are part of your everyday, and you kind of need to take them as that and accept whenever things don't go your way. If it is your mistake, you kind of accept it, you introspect, you try and not repeat it, and eventually, that's what progress is. You don't make progress from one day and overnight, right? You do it over years of practice. So I guess that's what it is.
Right, and I think it's matters that if you stick through it, you know that you're going to crack that
Yeah, yeah,
journey.
absolutely. I think consistency is the best way to kind of just combat anything
Right,
that is coming your way.
right, right, right. And I believe that client interactions are way much than just discussing the design. Sometimes some clients leave an impact on you, which stays with
Yeah.
you.
Right,
So,
right.
did you have any such clients or an incident which made you go back and think that okay, this is something new, like I've learned something.
Uh, I think we learned, in when you're young, um, and you kind of are, you're kind of exploring. You feel like you end up taking things that the client says also to in different ways, right? Uh, but I think I don't think there's ever been a moment or a particular client who has again um, been the only one who's impacted our kind of uh, our practice. I feel like every project so far has been giving in its own way in terms of learnings, right? um, there are so many things that you learn in the management of a project, which which I feel like is way beyond the creative aspect um, of having a successful practice. It's about doing things at the right time, kind of employing people at the right time, having the right kind of people, the language, communication. All of these are very, very important aspects of a successful project. And I think, um, a lot of clients have taught us, a lot of projects have taught us how to better this, and kind of further fine tune this process. And, I think that's what also kind of contributes to the bandwidth of how much you can take on, or, what you can really do with your time. And eventually, kind of add to the scale of the practice, and then add on to, your growth as well.
Right. So, and to design all these projects, inspiration is quite a dominant factor which drives the design towards the goal. And
Right.
inspiration can be drawn from anywhere around us. I mean, I think it's quite subjective, depends person to person.
Yeah.
So, are there some hobbies or interests of yours which help you draw inspiration for the kind of work that you have?
Uh, I think what happens is for for in situ, it's especially a lot of our inspiration comes from the client and the client brief, because we are kind of facilitators of their vision eventually. Like, we're trying to kind of mold what they want at the end of the day. Of course, we're adding layers of our expertise. We're kind of bringing what we do as and our style into it as well. But eventually, it is a lot of it stems, or the starting point becomes their brief. In Kalakaari Haath, I think it kind of also is responding to what the customers really kind of are really kind of giving us more encouragement for. Of course, there are things that we feel like belong to the larger body of work that we've done so far, and kind of build that continuity, so you still feel like you're buying from the same brand. um, but again, like over these years, you eventually then start responding to or communicating with your customer base, and developing things that are um, you see that they would kind of relate to, or eventually kind of imagine in their homes and their spaces.
Rightly said. And so, moving ahead as we conclude the interview, a sense of satisfaction is required when we put our heart and mind to any work that we do. I think that's
Right.
a major factor which helps us move ahead.
Right.
So, as how do you find a sense of fulfillment and purpose in your work apart from just the completion of projects?
uh I feel like I've started doing this more recently. I've been doing this for almost 11 years now, I want to say. And initially, when you're young and you're just kind of in it, you're just going through days, right? You're going through days, months, years. You're just like working, right? And and then there was a point where I kind of just sat down and realized that, listen, this is where we've come so far. And you know it started off as me being the only person who was responsible, kind of contributing, responding, in charge, just everything. I was that one person who was doing also, and creating also, and managing also, and it was, and marketing also. And then it's eventually kind of grown, right? And I think what's most gratifying is uh, to sometimes just sit and see that there are so many other people who share this vision, and who appreciate that, who see that you have done all this so far. And it kind of is a big enough drive for them to kind of also push themselves and be part of an organization that is means as much to me as it is today to them. So I think, to me, I feel like that feels like a lot of fulfillment. I mean, when we launched our first store, it was like, I think I was just sobbing, because I was like, listen, it started off with me in my parents' bedroom, and my parents' home, my bedroom over there. And now we have like a brick and mortar store where, so many people are going to come and kind of look at things. They've created all these beautiful products. And, it's not just me, it's like so many people who have kind of contributed to it. So, so yeah, I guess all of these moments make you feel really, really thankful for where you are.
Right. You've actually come a long way, as you mentioned. So, like starting from your own bedroom to having a store and then your own design studio, that's a great journey.
Thank
So,
you.
any one last advice or a message that you would like to give to our listeners?
I don't think I'm wise enough to give advice. I'm just going to say that I realized, when I was doing some introspection, I realized that it's the honesty with what you do things, is what relates to people. You can pretend to copy a style, you can pretend to copy, or like borrow from something that's trending or somebody's doing and getting a good response for. But I feel like people are very, very smart, and they kind of see through all of it. They understand the idea of who's speaking honestly and who is kind of pretending, and you can only pretend for that long. So I feel like don't undervalue what your gut says. Do it with honesty. You'll find a voice. And I also wanted to kind of uh, maybe leave this as like as a last thought, that a lot of times when we start out, we take the plunge of doing something of our own. It takes a lot of strength to do that. But a lot of, for hopefully for most people it works out, but for a lot of people it doesn't. And I think there's always a good time to call it and say that, okay, listen, I gave it my best shot. And now maybe it's time for me to also acknowledge that this is not something that is meant for me to kind of pursue. So I guess that also takes a lot of strength, and it takes a lot of guts to do that. So I don't think people really talk about it. People keep saying about persevering and just going at it, for years. But I do feel like there are times that you feel like you've given it your all, but you feel like it's not really moving to where you would imagine. So then you almost, I think it's a good time to evaluate, reflect, and then also say that maybe there's another path for me.
Right. I really admire your journey, and thank you so much for this interview.
Absolutely.
And I think this will definitely inspire a lot of people out there who are struggling or maybe just trying to find that one source of inspiration to keep going on with their designs
Yeah.
and their whole career. So thank you so much for this beautiful session. And
Thank you. Thank you so
thank
much for
yeah,
having me. Yeah,
thank you for
absolutely.
sparing out time from your busy schedule. And
Not at all.
yeah.
Happy to be as part of as many of these sessions.
Sure, sure. Yes, thank you so much. Hope to see
All
you
right.
soon. Yes,
Thank you.
thank
Yeah,
you.
take
Have
care.
a good day. Yeah,
You too. Bye bye. See
bye.
you. Bye.
It was definitely an inspirational talk with Sahiba Madan. I extend my deepest gratitude towards her for sparing out time from her busy schedule for this interview. We at the Architect's Diary hope that this video inspires all the young architects and designers out there. For more such original content, please subscribe to our channel, TAD Originals. If you enjoyed this conversation, do like and share the video. Thank you.